When a rookie firefighter is faced with one of the worst wildfires of his career, the severity of it overwhelms him. He and his colleagues worked day in and day out to try to save what they could. When the man comes across a lone baby bear, he doesn't hesitate to pull it out of harm's way. But it's what happens next that is truly amazing. Adam was only 12 years old when he decided he wanted to be a firefighter. This was, of course, much to his mother's disapproval. Naturally, she wanted him to have a safer job, perhaps one in an office where he would be out of harm's way. But she didn't stress because he was still so young. She thought he was destined to change his mind before he finished school. Oh, how wrong she turned out to be. As soon as Adam finished school, he enrolled in firefighting school. He was determined to work to save people's lives in any way possible. Growing up in California, he knew firsthand the damage a wildfire could cause and had always had the utmost respect for the crews that fought them. It was history to be a part of one of those teams, and indeed, he did. Of course, getting there wasn't easy. The tests and rigorous training were enough to turn anyone away, regardless of the dangers of the fire itself. The first time Adam accompanied the team, he remembered feeling overwhelmed by the sheer power of the fire, yet he was determined to help solve the problem. Of course, dealing with building fires and wildfires were two completely different things. He quickly realized that it was in nature where he truly belonged. His love of nature only furthered this, so he opted to shift his training specifically to the outdoors. It was then that he really began to see the power of fire up close and personal. A raging wildfire can move faster than most people realize, so much so that animals whose senses are stronger than ours sometimes fail to escape danger in time. This was the hardest part of Adam's job. The aftermath of the fire and the poor animals that didn't make it out in time. It was always a horrible sight, one that motivated him to try to do the best he could at his job. However, it was all a matter of timing, how fast the wind was blowing, which way it was blowing, and the conditions of the forest. Some fires were fiercer than others, so they really had no chance of saving animals. Adam learned this in his first summer on the job. It was the height of fire season in Northern California, and the fires were fierce. Thanks to a terrible wind coming off the coast, the fires were feeding and advancing rapidly, faster than anyone could have anticipated. Initially, they were left in one place ready to move and start digging trenches when the fire caught up to them too quickly. They were forced to evacuate before they could finish and help stop the fire's movements. It was that day that Adam saw a doe with her baby frantically jumping around trying to escape the fire. It was an image that would remain etched in his memory for life. He remembers feeling so helpless, he felt he should have been able to help the poor animals. There were many more like this that particular season. Some trips ended up being more successful than others. However, it was hard work. Adam hadn't seen his family in weeks and was very exhausted. His teammates just encouraged him and told him that it would get easier with time. He would just have to trust the process. He was passionate about his work, so he just had to be inspired by that. However, on more than one occasion, they managed to save neighbors from their homes, ones that had small children and elderly people. This helped reassure him that he was doing what he had set out to do: save lives. But it wasn't until he saved a particularly special life that he felt truly fulfilled. It was a dark time in California. It had been 2 years since Adam had started in the Wildland Fire Division. They were experiencing the worst fire season the country had ever seen, so much so that they were bringing in fire crews from all over the world to try to help. Cities in the northern parts of the state were evacuated and people needed rescue everywhere. It looked like something out of a horror movie. The skies were painted red from the flames and people were getting seriously ill from smoke inhalation. Adam and his crew had been in rotation fighting the same fire for over a week. Every time they felt they were getting somewhere, the wind shifted and the fire changed direction, causing more damage. It was extremely stressful. Members of the organizations were desperately trying to get food and supplies to the brave firefighters, but sometimes it wasn't enough, or they just couldn't get to them. Adam and his team were exhausted beyond relief. Their spirits were low, and their bodies were beginning to fail them. They needed a break in the wind, just a space where all the teams could work together at once and control the fire long enough for it to die out. This came just 2 days later. Adam and his team were resting when suddenly they heard bustling and shouting from outside. Indeed, the wind had died down completely. Everyone around them was going crazy with disbelief. It was the first time in almost 9 days that there was no wind. Everyone came out of the break and went straight to work. They were determined to beat this fire once and for all. Adam felt rejuvenated, as did the rest of the team, and quickly got to work. He was determined to push the fire back even a little. Progress was progress. He grabbed all his gear and headed to a place where they could work together with his team. He was busy with a trench when suddenly he heard a noise. At first he thought he was just listening to someone in the camp shrieking. Shaking himself, he put his head down and went back to work, but then he heard it again. He asked his team members if they had heard it, but was met with crazed looks. Adam decided it was best to keep it to himself. However, when he heard it a third time, he was determined to find out where it came from. What he did next was shocking. Adam did what no firefighter should do. He stepped over the existing trench and walked into the burning forest. His teammates immediately started yelling and calling out to him, but Adam refused to listen to them. He needed to find the source of the cry. When he did, he could hardly believe his eyes. When the shriek came for the 4th time, Adam was close enough to hear it loudly. This helped him change direction and find the source. As he rounded a tree, he saw a large log that had been lying there for years, and just below it, a cowering baby bear. The poor little guy couldn't have been more than a month old. He was sitting at the base of the log, clearly anxious and scared, crying out for his mother. Adam looked around, but saw only destruction and not a man in sight. How had this little bear survived so far? Adam hardly knew, but what he did know was that he needed to help the little guy quickly. Without much hesitation, Adam walked over to the little bear and picked it up in his arms like a child. Then he walked as fast as he could back to his station. When he broke through the tree line, his teammates cheered with joy as they saw that he was okay. When they realized what he was carrying, they could hardly believe their eyes. Adam carried the little bear back to camp to keep him safe from further harm. He gave him some water and food and tried to see if he was injured in any way. Thankfully, he wasn't. It was what happened next, though, that astonished everyone around him. When Adam knew that the bear was now safe and sound, he stood up and tried to walk away. Only the little bear followed him. Adam stopped and told him to stay, but the bear only came closer. That's when something amazing happened. The teddy walked right up to Adam and hugged his leg. It wrapped all 4 pairs of paws around the firefighter's leg and just clung to him. Adam was shocked. This poor little animal wanted to stay with him. When he pulled the bear out and gave it to a colleague, the bear simply ran back and clung to his leg again. Adam couldn't believe it. Eventually, they managed to find someone else for the bear to happily cling to while Adam went back to work. But it was a moment he would never forget, one that fueled the rest of his career as a firefighter. If you like this story, hit like and subscribe for more amazing content like this. See you next time.